so what I had planned for today is during our last sequencing clinic, I had our class build a sequence. So I will share my screen with you and we will kind of build off of that, and I will help you create some creative sequences. So just as a little review, so this is my ebook. Did you have a chance, by any chance, to read the ebook at all?
Oh, not yet, but I'll check it later.
Okay, no worries. So I'll do just like a quick review for you then. So this is the ebook, and I give out 5 steps to easy sequencing. So this will be perfect for you as you start to begin to sequence your own classes. So the first step is to create a yoga sequencing BFF list. The second step is to pick your class style. The third step is to pick a peak pose. The fourth step is to list out all of the key muscles used in your peak pose. And the fifth step is to use your sequencing BFF list to fill out the class template. So I'll explain a little bit more about what those things are. So this is the sequencing BFF list. And the idea behind this is that it literally categorizes the yoga poses based on body part, right? So hips, hamstrings, quads, glutes, shoulders, neck, core, heart openers, inner thighs, and any other category that you would want to put here. But this is really helpful so that when you go to sequence your class and your peak pose, just say like today our peak pose was standing split, that worked our hamstrings. I knew exactly what poses that worked the hamstrings to put into the class. Does that make sense?
Sorry. Yes. I love this one.
Yes.
Very great idea.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm glad that this makes sense. And then after you build out this list, which by the way, if you're unsure, you can always go on my Instagram. I actually have done it for you, yoga poses for each of the areas. I don't think I've put out all of them yet, but I've definitely done hips, hamstrings, and quads so far. And then the other thing I like to do is sometimes I even just Google it, right? Like, what does Google say? And then I always just filter it through my brain, because sometimes when I Google it, I get poses that really don't work those areas. But those are just some great starting points. So after you create this list, the next thing is to pick a class style. Now, this is super important. I know you guys probably got my email from this morning that I don't believe in all levels yoga, right? And I know this breaks the yoga norm, because what happens in an all levels yoga class is a beginner student goes to an all levels yoga class and they're lost because they don't know how to do the poses, right? A beginner student needs to actually be taught how to do the poses. How do they do a down dog? How do they do a chaturanga? How do they do a cobra, an up dog? How do they do a warrior, right? They actually need to be taught how to do all of the yoga basic poses. And a more advanced student likes to be challenged physically and mentally. And so when you try and teach to everyone, you're really teaching to no one. So the next step is to pick your class style. Like, who is your ideal audience? Who do you want to teach to? Is it beginners? Is it someone who's never done yoga before? Is it for people who have some yoga foundation, but aren't yet ready for some crazy vinyasas? Is it for people who do want to sweat and they want to learn crazy arm balances? Or is it for people who really just want gentle stretching and maybe can't bear weight on their hands and knees? So who is your ideal student? So Mary, who do you think your ideal yoga student is? Oh, you went muted. Who do you think your ideal yoga student is, Jennifer?
I'm a new teacher, as I think I told you in my email. I'm newly certified, and I have done a series of like community classes, and now I'm actually in 2 weeks getting added to the roster at my studio where I have been going for 5 years and recently got trained at. So I'm excited. But the class I was offered was 6:30 a.m. and I've never been to a the a.m. class myself, but I felt like, of course, I'm going to agree to do it because like I'm excited to be offered the position. So, and I know like new teachers always have to do the early morning classes because that's how you get in. So I have 2 weeks before my first class, and I'm gonna just start going to that 6:30 a.m. to see who goes there, because I don't really know. Like, I know that class schedule is offered as an open level, like anyone's welcome, but I want to see what level of people are in the house going there. So yeah.
Yeah, well, congratulations on just becoming a yoga teacher. That is a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. And also congratulations for getting on this sub list. Like, I love your attitude. Is exactly that. Like, in the beginning, you just take any opportunity that you can get, and you're doing the right thing, because that's exactly what I would suggest is like go to the class and see the level of the students.
Yeah, because in my training, I learned how to teach a vinyasa flow class as well as a foundations class. And, they did talk about sometimes you have to see, like, even if you're teaching a vinyasa flow, if you know that some of the people in there are more beginner, you have to break down the poses a little bit so they don't feel left out. And likewise, if you're teaching foundations, but that most everyone in there actually does yoga regularly, you can, add challenges in. So I know you have to read the room kind of thing, but that sometimes is something you should be ready to adjust as you see who shows up, because if you plan your flow, of course, you have to just always be, I think, be ready to adjust it.
Totally being able to adapt. And it's definitely more challenging when you teach at a studio and it's an all levels class, right? So then what are you going to teach? How do you prepare? And so the best way then is to just teach in that progressive format, right? This is level 1, this is level 2, this is level 3. It definitely
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but so like, let's just say for a pose, like half moon, right? So if I was going to teach half moon in an open levels class, right, I would just break it down into progression. So I would say the first step is to walk on the tall height, maybe even my foot's not even off the ground yet, I'm just on my tippy toe. This is option 1. This is option 2 with the hand on the hip. This is option 3. Then this is option 4. And then maybe this is option 5, right? So depending on the students in the class would be what option you would start with, and then how intense you can go. I don't even know if you could see me. Could you see me?
I could. Yes, I could. Thank you.
You're welcome. Right. So
yeah,
that would be my suggestion. And even as people, even though it's all open levels, as you begin to read the students, you can kind of decide like, okay, like I'm going to teach us more like a slow flow style, because people have yoga basics, but they're not yet ready to do crazy poses yet, right? Or maybe you realize that the level is more advanced and that you can teach it more at that flow style. But even if the studio doesn't tell you, you will grow your community of students if you kind of decide and can teach to that group of people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Where do you live, Jennifer?
I live in Connecticut, in Fairfield County.
Cool. I'm from New Jersey, so I've driven through Fairfield a bunch of times too.
Oh,
so.
What part of New Jersey?
I grew up in Basking Ridge, and then I went to Rutgers, so in New Brunswick.
Okay, nice. Okay, yeah. My sister-in-law lives in oh my God, why can't I think of it? Anyway, she lives in northern New Jersey. I can't remember, but
we're in New Jersey.
We go there sometimes. Yeah.
Cool. Hi, Kristen and Mary. I don't know if you want to share. Do you know like what class style that you're going to teach to at this yoga studio, or that you want to teach to?
Oh, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, all right. So I've been teaching like the super beginners class, the beginners class, and like the advanced class.
Cool. So this studio sounds like it has it broken down, which
Yeah,
is really cool that they do that already, because that makes it way easier. You know, in beginners, you're going to break everything down. And then, you know, in the advanced class, they know those basics. So that's really cool.
yeah. Usually, my students in super beginners class are those pretty doesn't have any experience in yoga, and some are like very not really very old, but like 50s and all, something like that.
Yeah, it's really cool to work with those students who have no yoga experience and actually teach them how to do the poses, how to do it right, and break it down. It's so rewarding to watch them go on their yoga journey.
Yeah, yeah. Because um we put that flow because some students really need to uh needs adjustment, so they cannot go to like other class that is they cannot do the process, so the body needs to be adjusted. And
Oh,
then if they can do that, if they're properly aligned, and then that's the time we put them on and next class, you know,
yeah.
beginners or advanced.
I love that. That's why I love having the class styles, because you can literally take them on a journey from beginner, watching them to get the poses, preparing their body to then maybe a slow flow to maybe then a flow or a more challenging class. Yeah, because in the beginning, they need that individualized feedback of like, yes, you got it. Yes, you're doing it right. Or no, shift your foot forward or put your hand here. So it's super important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And welcome, Kristen. I don't know if you wanted to share what style of yoga you like to teach, or who your ideal yoga student is. Oops, sorry, I just asked to unmute you and you unmuted, so you're muted again.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I just had two babies in 2 years, and I'm starting to teach again, and I needed some inspiration on getting some creative flows going because I just started teaching again. But I went from teaching at a yoga studio to teaching at a gym, and it's very different teaching at a gym versus a studio. They mostly like want to stretch, and I've been told that I tend to like get a little more funky with the moves that we do is what they tell me. But I found you the other day on Instagram, and I actually stole one of your warm-ups, with the cow face one, where you like spit around and then you like reverse and do it the opposite way.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really fun, and they really liked it. Yeah, you just had some really fun things I liked on your Instagram, and I'm taking it and I'm putting it into my classes. My struggle's have been like what you said. You can't teach to everybody, and as much as I really want to, I think I tend to make my classes a little too challenging for the students that were already coming to this yoga class that was kind of built, and then I took it over. So like that's been a struggle, I guess, for me. Nobody's been not coming back though. Like, so I watch and I see, but there's some older people in this class that are very much should probably be in a beginner class, and I don't teach to beginners. I kind of teach more of a slow flow, I think, from your descriptions of it. Yeah, but that's been the challenge, is trying to teach to all of them. And I like that you sent that email out. I was like, because it's absolutely right. You can't teach to everybody. Like, you can't make everybody happy. And I don't want to scare the people that were coming to it away. I don't know if you have any tips for that.
Yes, I totally get your dilemma, right? First, congratulations on your two babies and coming back to teaching. That's very exciting. And it's a total different shift, right? Going from a yoga studio to a gym. And I love how you're kind of balancing how do you keep yourself and what you love to teach and also meet your students' needs at the gym. And that's the line that you're trying to balance. And so I love that you're just gonna own that your style is slow flow, right? Most of the time at the gym, it's just called yoga. And so you can literally teach it however you want to teach it. And so you can own that.
Right.
Your style is slow flow, right? And so just because it's slow flow doesn't mean that there can't be fun transitions, right? So it just means that maybe you're moving a little bit slower, you're cueing the transitions super clear so that people can get it. And then also being okay sometimes, like when I'm teaching a new transition, even in a more advanced class, I'm okay if 85% of the students get it, right? And a few are taking my class for the first time, aren't yet used to my teaching style. Like it's okay sometimes if they don't get it and then they come into the pose, right? So it's also that like balance of that mental game too. It's like not everyone's going to get every fun transition that we're doing. We want majority of the class to do it. We want to make sure we're doing our part. We're using clear codes, we're demoing, we're giving feedback. And then at the same time, it's okay sometimes if a few of the students don't get it. But I think my biggest suggestion was you own what you want to do. You own that you're slow flow. You own that you love transitions, and you get to have the fun transitions without making it super challenging where they don't want to come back, which is totally possible.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks.
You're welcome. Where do you live, Kristen?
I'm military. We just moved to Memphis area from Pensacola, Florida area.
Oh, awesome. So you move around.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys all so much for sharing. We're going to move on to our third step. So after you know what style of class that you like, and I've listed out all the different distinctions between them and the poses to do, which you guys can read in the ebook, definitely worth it. I'm not going to go through all of that. The next thing to do is pick your peak pose. So it's important that based on what style of yoga that you're teaching a peak pose that's appropriate for that level. So say Mary, I'm teaching my beginner class, my peak pose might be supported warrior 3, either with blocks or at the wall, right? Because that's a more beginner friendly type of peak pose, or it might be tree pose, and it could even be tree pose at the wall. If my class was a slow flow class, my peak pose might be something like, it could even be warrior 3 without the hands, or half moon. And if I'm teaching more of a flow class like we took today, my peak pose was standing split, and we did a fun, funky transition from twisted half moon to hand to big toe pose. So sometimes it's also not just a peak pose, but a peak sequence. So after you decide what you want your peak pose to be, and I also want to point out why it's important, right? Some people have been asking me, well, why is a peak pose important? I just want to go and teach to who's there and intuitively teach. But the thing is that we want to take our students on a journey, right? And we get to decide what that journey is going to be. And so when we have a peak pose, we're very intentional about everything that we're putting in our class. Every pose has a purpose. It's opening our body and strengthening the muscles that need to be strengthened in order for us to get to the peak pose. Because when we're more open, we can try more challenging poses that we might not have been able to do, probably wouldn't have been able to do if we had just did it at the beginning of class, right? And so it gives our students a sense of empowerment, like, wow, I can do this. And even if they can't do the full expression of the pose, which I don't really like that term, when we teach it in a progressive manner, kind of like I was showing you before, Jennifer, level 1, level 2, level 3, and we teach it so the whole class is going through the levels, they're empowered to stop where they need to stop along the way. And then they also know the steps to get to their progression in the pose. So it's actually very empowering for the students when we teach in this peak pose format. And it also, I find, makes teachers more confident when they have a plan. And it doesn't mean that we're, like not teaching to who's in the room, right? When we're teaching to who's in the room, it's like, well, what levels of the pose are we going to teach, right? A pose can have anywhere from 5 to 7 different levels of doing it. And depending on what style I'm teaching, I'm going to maybe start at level 1, or maybe I'm starting at level 3. Does that make sense? So we pick the peak pose, and then we list out the 3 key muscles associated with the peak pose. And then we use our sequencing BFF list to fill out our class template. So those are kind of the basics of easy sequencing. And what I really wanted to focus on today was creative sequencing. So last time we decided as a group to sequence a vinyasa flow class with our peak pose as half moon. And so I wanted to build off that sequence and have us come up with some creative sequencing in that class. So there's 2 ways that I like to think that I approach creative sequencing in my class. And the first thing I always do is exactly what we did last session, and I build out my whole class. And then I think in one pose, what are ways that I can move within that pose, right? Can I add a twist? Can I add a side bend? Can I add an arm variation? Maybe I close my eyes to make the pose more challenging. Maybe I add pulsing. Maybe I add circling. Maybe I add repetition. Maybe I add active flexibility. So it's just within that one pose, how can I move around in the pose? So let's do this together as a team. So if you guys all will come off unmute, and I'm going to get into half split, and I want you guys to think of how can I move around in that half split pose. So you guys are going to tell me what I can do here.
You can walk your hands over to the left.
Yeah, and push my butt to the right. I love that.
Mm-hmm. You can bend your front knee and shift your hips forward and back, come back in and out of it.
Yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
You can walk your hands over the straight leg to the other side.
Like this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you could even like move your front toes right and left, like windshield wiper your toes to kind of feel the different parts of your toes.
Yes, what else could I do?
You could sit back on your heel.
I can sit back on my heel. Yeah. What else could I do?
You can leave your left hand down and maybe take your right arm up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A side twist.
Yeah.
Does that feel weird?
It actually makes the sensation in my hamstring deeper when I twist towards the
Yeah, you could.
And I like it. I'm gonna feel it.
You could even straighten the leg if everybody's there. You could extend into Hamanasana.
For sure.
Hamanasana. Full split. If you think your students are ready.
Yeah, absolutely. What else could we do?
Point and flex your foot.
Absolutely.
Like you're doing.
You guys got a lot of things. So you see how just per se, you taught this in every class you taught for the next 3 months. You could teach it differently, right? One time you could fold. The next time you can fold and curl your hands over to the left, push the hips to the right. The next time you can windshield wiper your foot from side to side. The next time you can curl your hands all the way over to the right, push your hips to the left. The next time you can twist, right? The next time you can point and flex your foot. So you see how within the pose, you can give yourself permission to play and move around. let's do another one. So I gotta switch my legs here. Let's do low lunge. What are some things that I can do in low lunge?
You can do a prayer twist.
Yeah.
Yep. You can have a hand on the ground and twist.
Yeah.
You can bend that back heel in and reach. Yep. You can do like goddess arms, maybe a little back bend.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Eagle arms.
Yeah. Arm
Oh yeah, eagle arm.
You could do a side bending to the left,
Oh yeah.
side bend to the right.
Oh yeah.
What else can you do? We could even do cat and cow here, cactus arms, draw the belly button in, open, close, an extension. We can waterfall the arms and reverse waterfall. We can even do like almost like a modified extended side angle. We can lift the heel, sink even deeper. We can even back out of the pose and come at 90-degree angles, tuck our tailbone and squeeze our right glute. Feel the deeper stretch in the hip flexors. Right? So depending on where you're going in your sequence, right? If our sequence is a heart opener, definitely we could cactus the arms, maybe even do the cat and cow. We could even do old school gym stretch here, right? And side bend if we were needing some arm opening. If our sequence was twisting, we could do this. We could do this. We could do this. We could do this. If our sequence was shoulder opening, right? We could do this. We could do this. We could do this, right? So there's so many ways to move in the pose. What is one way do you think that we could pulse in this pose? Or actually, what's one way we can circle, right? So circling is when we move like around in a circle at a joint. So a good example of circling would be dancing line. So what do you think in low lunge would be a way that we could circle?
I've got a baby crying, so I got to mute.
What do you think, Mary or Jennifer? Any ideas on how we could circle?
Circle your, wait, what asking? How you could circle your hips in low lunge?
It could be any of our joints.
I mean, you could circle your arms and kind of open, you know, yeah, like shoulder openers that way. And then and then you rest after like 3 in each direction. You rest your hand in the back of your low back, like it twists a little, right? Opening up your heart to the sky.
Yes. Love that.
That looked good.
So one of my favorite ways to get creative in our sequencing is to do exactly what we just did. Get in the pose and play. Give yourself permission to move around. And so this will be really, really great, especially for you, Kristen, who likes teaching slow flow when we're not yet doing crazy arm balances, right? We're not adding those to our repertoire. So we're repeating a lot of the same poses over and over again, but you can make them different, right? You can make them different. Let's do it for one more pose that may be a little less obvious, but you guys are really good sequencers. So I think you can do it. So what would be some ways that I could make my warrior 3 different or creative. What could I do here?
I would pulse your back heel up and down.
Yes, like this. I'm taking some.
Yeah, I'd probably take my hands now.
Yeah, yeah. You could do it like this too, but I'm a little tired. Yeah, so we can.
I like to throw like some airplane arms in, like reaching back and reaching up, forward. Yeah.
Yes, this is beautiful. Doing this arm movement.
Oh, like you're swimming. It's like you're swimming.
Like this. Ooh.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that looks challenging, but yeah.
Yes.
Jennifer, I'm stealing this from you. Yeah, I like that. What else could we do?
You could just balance with your hands at your center, like in here.
Yeah.
And then pulse your leg up. Well, we said that already.
Yeah, leg pulses. I love that. So we got some leg pulses. We've got some arm movement. We could even take a variation of Warrior 3 with our knee bent and even pulse kind of into our Shiva squats, a little moving out.
Ooh.
Class, I'll teach Warrior 3 with the knee bent if we're not super warmed up yet as well. You could also come up on the tippy toe. Right, you can play with the foot, come up on the heel. You could, a twist would move us into our twisted half moon, right? We could go for a crazy variation of our Warrior 3 and bend the back foot and grab it and open.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you could even try closing your eyes in Warrior 3, which would definitely shift your balance and you might fall. But yeah, so part of the fun is giving yourself permission to play in the poses, move around. And then when you teach them, depending like what you're teaching will depend on which variation of the pose or which play on the pose you're teaching. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Are there any poses that you guys want to do that you want to play around with, that you're unsure of how you could play in the pose and we could think together as a group?
I like wide-legged fold. Is there, I was going to try to incorporate a wide fold like kind of sequence this week and I haven't thought into it too much yet. Could you like a wide fold?
Yeah, this pose is so fun, Kristen, because we could do so many cool things here.
Yeah, I want to see what you want to do here.
We can twist like this.
Yes.
We can twist like this, right? We can bend one knee, straighten one leg, bend the other. We can walk the arms out in front of us for wide leg and down dog. We could curl our arms through. We could even take a wacky variation that's twisted where you come up on the razor edge of your feet and kind of take a twisted wide-legged forward fold, which then also sets us up perfectly for our cow face.
Oh, yeah, to go into your seated pose.
Yeah. We can reach the arms out in front of us if your class is core focus like this, super hard. Interlace the fingers behind the back, draw the fingers down. We can, what else can we do here, right? We can pull side to side in airplane mode. It's really hard, probably one of my least favorite variations, but it is possible. What else? What do you think, Jennifer? What else can we do here?
You could move into Skandasana.
Yeah, for sure. Our half
Can I ask you an anatomy question about that pose? My ankle does not bend enough for me, like on the bent knee, for me to keep the foot flat.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple things that you can do. One of them is coming to a wall. Can you see me here? This is going to help you come to the wall, like fist distance away from the wall. You're gonna bend your knee and tap the wall, and then come back. So this will help stretch all of those muscles. The other thing you can do is always put a blanket underneath your foot. So you're saying your heel is up like this when you're in your...
Yes, I can't get my foot flat, just like that.
Yep.
And
that exercise I said on the wall, definitely would recommend doing that at home. And then putting a blanket underneath it.
Cool, we'll try that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, also in wide-legged forward fold, there's so many things that then you can come up and play with, right? We've got our star pose. There's so many things that we can do with our arms here.
Oh, yeah.
Go into goddess pose, right? It's just an endless cycle of things that we can do.
Oh, yeah.
And Kristen, with wide-legged forward fold, what I love to do is then you can play with wide-legged forward fold on the floor, right? Because you could literally start your class in wide-legged after you do your grounding tune in wide-legged forward fold and move the spine in the 6 directions in wide-legged forward fold, right? I actually just made a reel on that, but I didn't post it yet. Maybe I'll post it tomorrow and then you can steal it.
Okay.
And then the transition that I showed today that gets you back to a wide-legged forward fold where you're in fallen triangle and you sit your butt down. So the other thing that I like to do when I'm sequencing is think of like, what are all of the ways in which I can do the pose, right? So I can do wide-legged forward fold standing, obviously, but then I could also do it seated. Now, could I do it on my back? And then like incorporate those into your class as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So after, yay, did that give you some ideas?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Yay. So after I go pose by pose, my next exercise that I do is how can I connect 2 or 3 or 4 poses, kind of making a mini sequence together and make it creative, right? What can I do in each of those poses that make sense and how could I flow them together? So I wanted to use our sequence from last time. Let me pull it up really quick. And this is it, share my screen. And we could together as a group add in some creative sequencing to this. So this is actually going to go still in the warm up here because the first sequence, we want it to either be low lunge poses or lunge or standing poses, and same with the second sequence. So let's brainstorm. What are some low lunge and or standing poses that work the hips and the hamstrings? What do you guys think? Let's start with the hamstrings. What are some low lunge or standing poses that work the hamstrings?
Well, how about just bending in the back knee and like grabbing or like reaching your hand to foot to sort of do a pull your, like with a stretch. That's what I'm trying to say. A thigh stretch. Low lunge into the thigh stretch.
Yes.
Doesn't that get your hamstrings?
This is more my quad.
Yeah.
Low lunge would definitely get my hips for sure.
Okay.
So we can put low lunge under hips. What else do you guys think for hips and hamstrings? We'll focus on those 2 for now.
Are you, okay, sorry, I got distracted for just a few minutes. Are you doing it from a low lunge?
Just any standing or low lunge poses that work hips and hamstrings.
The name of the pose just slipped my mind. Like your foot out, shifted out to the right, not a pigeon. Wow, I just lost it. All right, your knee is shifted out to the right. Your one knee's on the ground. I don't know how to explain it. I lost the name of the pose. I do this all the time too. I like this pose.
Your pose like this?
No, that's like that's a deer, right? No, your knees up,
Like this?
and no, so like go back to the low lunge, and then the knee that's up. Bring your arms on the inside of that foot.
Lizard.
Bring your arms. Lizard. That was it. I don't know. I could not think of it. Mom brain, all right?
Yeah, a lizard's one of my favorites. So I feel you. Yes.
Me too.
Lizard. And then I'll add deer since I gave you guys that one. What are some other hip poses?
Malasana.
Yes, yogi squats and half yogi squats. We did a lot of that today. What are some other hip poses?
Pigeon.
And all the variations, right? Recline figure 4. And double pigeon. Cool. We got a decent amount of hips. What are some poses that work specifically to hamstrings? That are standard?
Pyramid pose.
Pyramid. Yep. What else? You got that thinking brain on, Jennifer.
Yeah, sorry.
I love it. One of my favorites is half split.
Oh, you mean runner stretch? Is that what you?
That's what I call, yeah. That's what
Okay.
I call half split. Yeah.
Okay, runner stretch. I call it runner stretch, but anyway.
Totally.
A triangle.
Triangle.
I'm trying to feel it. I feel a little bit in my hamstring.
I wouldn't normally think of triangle for hamstring, but it's not completely wrong. I wouldn't put it in my hamstrings category.
Yeah. What category would you put that in? Would it be hips? My hips always pop.
Yes. Triangle is definitely hips, and core, right? We're doing like a twist using our side body. Yeah. Okay, so we've got these poses. Now let's pull some of them together. We're gonna recreate this first sequence. So in our first sequence, we want it to be like level 1 of sequence 2, right? So we don't want to do like the most intense, the most challenging poses in that first sequence. We want the first sequence to build on top of the second sequence. So out of these poses here, low lunge, deer, lizard, yogi squat, half yogi squat, pyramid, half runner stretch. Let's pick 3 of them to flow together. And then we're gonna get on the mat and play. So which 3 poses do you wanna flow together out of the ones that are listed here?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? Somebody was distracting me here.
No worries. Out of the poses that we listed, we're gonna pick 3 poses to flow together. Which 3 poses do we wanna try and flow together?
Can you do deer pose? I'm gonna see what transition you do to get into that.
Okay, so we're gonna do deer.
Yeah.
And then what else?
How about how about a runner stretch or half into a lizard, like lunging forward into lizard?
do it. So I'm gonna do deer first, but so we've got lizard, half split, and deer. How are we gonna flow them together? So the best way is to get on our mat. Come into the poses. We're gonna start with our half split and go into our lizard pose. Now, lizard to my deer, to shift my hip, come into an upright position, and then take my left knee out.
Okay.
We can twist like this, and then we can play with some mobility. We can windshield the wiper the knees from side to side. And then we can go to the back of the mat.
And reverse it.
Bring it into pigeon. Press into our hands, come up into our lizard, and then go into our half split. And then I don't know where we were coming from before that, but we have to make our way back around. And then we can, so that would be my basic flow, right? If we're in our half split, we would come into our lizard, do our lizard stuff, go into an upright pigeon, then into deer. And then there's so many things in deer. We could fold, we can twist, do my hip mobility. But because I'm gonna put this more as my first sequence, I'm not going to fold in pigeon or kind of rest in pigeon yet. We're just using this still to open the hips. So now that we kind of have our basic sequence, lunge or runner stretch, top split, lizard, deer, hip mobility to the back of the mat, we're gonna add some more juice into it. So the whole point of half moon pose is to open up the hips, the hamstrings, and the core. So as we're doing these poses, I would come into my half split, and I would pick one of those variations or a few of them, right? So I might windshield wiper my foot from side to side. I might curl my hands out, push my hips this way. Then I might bend into my knee, come into my lizard, rock side to side, lower to my forearms, reach for my back leg, give this as an option, release this down, find my pigeon setup, take an upright pigeon where we kiss the shoulder blades, open the heart, which we don't tend to do a lot in yoga, right? We spend a lot of time forward, shift my weight to the side, come into my deer. And because we're not yet, we're not yet cooling down, I would keep it a little bit more active and maybe do a twist and then add in our hip mobility and then go towards the back of the mat. So you see what I'm saying? After I've discovered how I would play in each pose, I connect a few of the poses and then I see how I could play, add in those like fun, juicy things within each pose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yay. So what did we decide? Half split or runner's stretch? Runner's stretch. Into lizard. Into it's like upright pigeon, I'm gonna call it, as our transition pose. Into deer, into deer twist, into hip mobility, and back of mat second side. Look how fun and creative that is.
Fun.
Yeah, super fun, super fun. And it really will depend on how you want to juice up each pose, right? How do you want to add creativity to the half split? How do you want to add creativity to the lizard, to the upright pigeon, to the deer, to the twist, to the hip mobility, you know? So yeah, and I just keep repeating that. And one of the best things that I do is when I take a class, I write down what it is that I love, and then I try it out in my next class, right? So I'm always learning. Like I just learned from you guys today some of the things like runner stretch twist. I never tried that before, but I really like it. So when I'm doing a twisting class and I also want to stretch the hamstrings, I'm totally going to steal that. So thank you. So yeah. So thank you guys for joining me on today's sequencing clinic. I loved getting to know you guys a little bit more off Instagram and on Zoom. And I'd love for us to close out today with just sharing something that you learned. So maybe if you'll start, Jennifer, since you're off mute.
Oh, I was like looking at all this. I mean, I think I knew in teacher training, I learned that you kind of think of as peak and then think of what do you need to open up to get there. I liked the chart, you know, just having the chart, like what body parts do you want to open, and then list, you know, 2 or 3 things under each body to open those things help you make the sequence. I think that was like the little worksheet idea. And then of course you have to go back and forth between your worksheet and your mat, make sure that it makes sense as you're flowing, which I think we all know, but like, it's just, I think that worksheet is helpful.
Totally. I totally can relate to that. It's like we conceptually kind of learn these things in teacher training and maybe we do it once or twice, but it's like actually repeatedly doing them and not just as something that we like know. I like to say that the difference between knowledge and wisdom is like knowledge, we know it, but wisdom, we do it, right? And so we kind of like know it, but it's really sacred to have this space where we actually get to put what we know into action, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here and sharing your insight. And I'm so excited for you to teach this early morning, 6:30, you said, right?
Yes, starting September 6th. So like I said, I go to it tomorrow, which means I should really go to bed soon. Like it's so funny because I normally do wake up around then, but like to actually be there and like ready to teach will be a whole nother thing. But I'm gonna give my practice this week and next week.
Yeah, you got some time to prepare. I love it.
Yeah. So thank you all.
You're welcome. Kristen, what's something that you learned today?
I'm like Jennifer. I was peak pose trained to come up with things that stretch and open. Like you pick a peak pose and go from there. It's been more like you've given me some ideas, and I need to. It's hard because I have 2 babies under 2 years old to get on my mat and do it and play with it. Like I got to start doing that more, not just like watching Instagram stories and then writing it down and then like trying to bust it out in the class and see if it happens. I need to play on a mat. Yeah.
I totally get that. It's like that same thing Jennifer was saying. It's like we know what we need to do, but it's like actually carving out that time. Like you said, you're a mom of 2 beautiful babies under 2. It's challenging, but yeah, like having that time where we can actually just do what we know to do, and that's why I like love these sequencing clinics because we get to do that a little bit.
Yeah, it's been fun and interactive, and I like that. It's been interesting.
Yeah, because we also get bounce ideas off of each other. It's super fun. So yay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of it, some of it, because not everybody learns all of that in teacher training, but when you are taught that peak pose method, it's like having that accountability of doing it and then getting those ideas off of each other. So awesome. Thank you for being here, Kristen, and I'm excited to hear more about this gym yoga class that you teach and how it unfolds for you.
Thanks. I teach a chair yoga too. I started that when I was pregnant, and I absolutely love teaching chair yoga. I didn't think I would, but it's my favorite now. They love it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Why is it your favorite now?
The feedback I get from them, they're just all so happy and positive all the time, and they're just you can tell they're just happy to be there versus like younger people are kind of like in and out and in a hurry and they're getting off and on with their day. But like the older people, they enjoy it. You can tell and you can see it in their face while you're teaching, you know?
Aww.
Oh, that's nice.
It feels good to be appreciated and to know that what you're doing is
Helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for being here, Kristen. And what about you, Mary? What's something that you learned today? Are you there, Mary? Well, if you hopped off, Mary, you can send it to me in an email because I would love to hear. Well, thank you, three beautiful ladies, for joining me today. I will be hosting another one. It's going to be on the weekend, Saturday at 10 a.m. I have to check on the exact date, but you guys are definitely welcome to join, and I'd love to have you guys again.
Thank you.
That, you're so welcome. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and
Thank you.
Instagram. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.